I know you've probably had some accomplishments. Talk to me about those, and then talk to me about what you want to maybe accomplish in the next term if you're elected.
Well, one accomplishment is really an ongoing accomplishment. This goes back to the year 2005, when I realized that Parkview Hospital was going to be moving out of its location there at Randalia and State. Although it's technically in the 2nd District, that hospital affects all of the northeast side of Fort Wayne, and particularly the 1st District, because there's probably more senior citizen facilities in that part of town than any place else, and they're there in part because of that hospital. So I realized that that hospital moves out, or 95% of it went away, it would be devastating to the area, both literally and figuratively, both from the viewpoint of healthcare and the financial well-being of the neighborhoods around there. So I organized what was called the Parkview Select Committee. I pulled together about 10 or 12 people who lived in the area, right around the hospital, who were savvy. I mean, I went to people like Andy Downs, I went to people like Karen Goldner, Alan Grinsfelder, and Dan Wire, and a lot of people from the area around there, and worked with the Northeast Area Partnership and said, I'd like to put this committee, this what I call the Parkview Select Committee, under the auspices of the Northeast Area Partnership. And I want this committee to sit down and start meeting with the hospital and the hospital staff. And David Coley, the chairman of the Northeast Area Partnership, is also the facilitator of this committee. And it's been meeting regularly since then. I think things are finally getting to the point where there'll be some final announcements pretty soon as to what's going to happen. But it was that process. This was the citizens working with one of the largest corporations in our city. It wasn't government directed. It wasn't led by government. It was led by citizens. I started it, but once I got it started, I was just sort of, I would kind of peek over the horizon to see how they're doing. I didn't meddle or, get in there. I let these people do their work, and they've been doing it very well. So I'm very proud of that process. And hopefully there will be some good news, some very, very good news about what Parkview is going to do with that Randalia site. The other was, I mentioned earlier, the Great Ice Storm. I remember when that hit. I think it was the Christmas of 2008. I think that was the date, between Christmas and New Year's. And I remember getting up that next morning and walking outside, and it looked like, trees were down everywhere, if people can remember what was going on. And I started getting calls. And obviously the city did too at that time. And the first words that came out from the city was, well, if you cut your limbs up and take them out to the parkway and have them bundled up nicely, we'll haul them away for you. I said, oh my God, who's going to be able to take these huge limbs out, particularly if you got senior citizens? I mean, everything was a mess. So I said, wait a minute, that can't be. The city has to do this. You just have to get out there. We have to spend the money, take the time, however long that takes. And I think it took at least 6 months to get everything cleaned up. But the mayor called, I'm very proud of this, the mayor called a press conference, announced that, and he personally and publicly thanked me for the idea, and he says, we're going to do that. And so that was taking leadership, not only for the district, but for the entire city. He said, look, we can't tell people, you bundle them up and drag them out to the, you'd have, the stack would be as high as some trees, So anyway, those are two things that I'm very proud of. And one last other thing.
Well, and you kind of took the lead on that, and,
I did.
and got other councilmen together, and I think, didn't you all give some seeded dollars, some of your seeded dollars up?
Yeah.
And that was after, if I remember correctly, it was after the seeded dollars had been, those allocations had been taken away from you. So this was money that you still had
it was,
left, but still gave it up to...
Yeah. And one last thing, it shows what citizens can do. This goes back to, 2002, 2003, something like that. When at the Northwood Shopping Center, it's at this intersection of Stellhorn and Maplecrest, there was an empty old Kroger store there for many years, and sitting next to it was a Target store. Well, I discovered that the Target store wanted to move out of there. They wanted to go up to Chapel Ridge, out further east on Stellhorn and Maysville, out there. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, if that Target moves out of there, and there's already that empty Kroger store there, that shopping center's dead. And there it is, right in the middle of a very vital area. So I remember going to the Northeast Area Partnership, I think it was for 2 months in a row, talking about this. And I said, look, we have to organize. We've got to get all the neighborhood presidents, particularly the neighborhood associations that surround this shopping center. Every time you go in there, tell them you want them to stay. Don't go. You've been there for 30 years. We love you here. Don't leave. Oh, and by the way, why don't you rebuild here? Why don't you tear down your store and the old Kroger store, put your new superstore in there? And after about a year, year and a half, maybe 2 years of that kind of very quiet word of mouth campaign, that's exactly what Target did. Saved that shopping center because of citizen involvement. Getting that early warning and then acting. And I must say then a few years later, Target did the same thing out at Glenbrook when they tore that old store down. They didn't move out. They stayed there. They tore the stores down and rebuilt. They've been very good corporate citizens in our community. So those are some of the things I'm proud of. And, you know, it's been for the betterment of the citizens throughout the city.
Is there anything left undone that you want to work on in 4 years?
Oh, I still want to get more done downtown, even though it's not in my district, but I want to get downtown. I want to get this Parkview Hospital thing out of the way, get the Maple Crest extension, get that, because that's going to take another 2 years before that's all really finalized. So I've got to stay on top of that. And just to try to get businesses back into those empty stores. You know, you got time for one last idea?
Sure, always do.
What could be interesting is to have what I will call a top 10 most wanted list in Fort Wayne. And this would be the 10 most wanted businesses. What do people say they want to bring to Fort Wayne that would make this a better place? Now, I'm not talking about high-tech firms and manufacturing facilities, but the kinds of things people like you and I and everybody else would use every day or every week or whatever. What are those? What if we could find a way to compile some sort of an accurate list? Probably have to involve the media to figure out what people want. Is it a Costco? Is it Nordstrom's? Is it Trader Joe's? Is it a Cheeseburger in Paradise? What are the things that people see in other cities, other parts of the country, that they would like to have here? So let's say, through some legitimate or semi-legitimate public process, we can come up with the top 10 businesses by name that people would want to see here in Fort Wayne. Let's publish that list so everybody sees it. Everybody then can become an ambassador for Fort Wayne. I've done this. When I'm in other cities, I'll go in and talk to some business and say, you know, why don't you come to Fort Wayne? We got places there for you. When you're out, people say, come to Fort Wayne. It's a place to be. You know, this would be helping the Economic Development Alliance and other people bring things to Fort Wayne. And we could publish it. The whole world would know what we want in Fort Wayne. How many other cities have said, okay, look, this is what and who we want here? Now, if we don't get them, you cross them off the list. Then if there's whatever was 11 on the list, moves up. But what if we had everybody in the city pulling together? You know, can you imagine some Cheeseburger in Paradise that's in Indianapolis? I think if Fort Wayne people going there, you know, how many people over a year would say, hey, come to Fort Wayne? Well, maybe that gets passed up the corporate ladder and people come here. I remember one time, Steve, this was several years ago, I was in Nordstrom's in Indianapolis in the Circle downtown, and I happened to meet one of the assistant managers, a young woman. I was looking in the men's department, she happened to be there. We got talking, I told her who I was, she told me who she was. I said, look, why don't you come to Fort Wayne? We've got an empty Marshall Fields at Glenbrook. Well, nothing ever happened, but it's that kind of word of mouth and that kind of thing. So what if we had our top 10 most wanted list, published it, and everybody could start working to get those businesses in Fort Wayne? That's something I'd like to see happen. That's about it, Steve.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm done.
Okay.
I've said enough.
Okay. Well, Tom, we appreciate your time, and we wish you well in May, May 3rd. I always want to say March, so I got it right that time.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.